Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly, and we're back with another East Tennessee fishing report with Ellis Ward. Ellis, how are you?
I am doing well, Marv. How are you?
As always, just trying to stay out of trouble. And we were hopeful that the hot weather was kind of going to be a thing of the past, but I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case.
Dude, I've been saying since I met you that I don't know why you're trying to predict the weather. Your job is not meteorology.
Yeah. Although, Matt and I said that you should be picking the first snowfall in Johnson City.
What was I, like 3 months off of the last freeze date a couple years ago?
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, it's same thing happens this time of year. It's, we had a couple mornings in the upper 50s, and that's kind of closer to, not that I'm very near a quote unquote city, but you start getting a little more elevation, and the musky water is dropping from 71, 72 at peak temps in the afternoon to mid to upper 60s by the morning. Trout, the tailwaters are a little more insulated with the giant lakes feeding them. So there's not I think changing daylight, like large temperature arcs tend to influence the trout a little more. But, all that said, of course, we're finding our way back to the mean, and it was nice and toasty today.
And so what does that translate to on the water for you?
Well, those fronts, and depending on which side of these fronts you might be on, can encourage or discourage bug activity. That's really where you can see it and almost feel it and hear it. You're seeing ospreys and herons more. The things are just a little more alive. I've mentioned that before, but being on the other side of it now for the last couple of days, and now back into a warming trend, it's big skies. And a couple of days ago, actually, it's Monday, so Saturday, I would qualify it as bad fishing conditions. Very, very bright, very clear sky, and not super buggy. And there's a bunch of different dynamics that come into play for each of these seasons, and honestly, day to day with the tailwaters as the flows change. And we managed to pick off a few risers. I tried to encourage the angler to take 1 or 2 horsepower off of the hook set, but like really, really eagerly feeding trout in really big water. And then I mean, we probably moved 2 dozen maybe. Couple nice ones in there, and it was one of the dynamics that happens this time of year. And forgive me for repeating myself from whether episodes past or my time with you, but you lift up a rock in mid to late August, and there's a couple little, size 28 blue wing, maybe some straggler larger nymphs crawling around there, and that mayfly food source, that biomass, has come and gone. You're starting to see caddis build. They look like size 36s, but they're building their little homes for April of next year. Like, that's what you're seeing most of. And go to different rocks with a little bit of vegetation on them, and you're finding if you shake it off, your hand looks like a science experiment. It's just full of scuds. And that just looks so different compared to the same rock a month, 2 months, 3 months ago. And so some of this activity, like a pretty darn good day of fishing on Saturday, in pretty bad conditions, generally speaking, I think can just be explained by what they're eating. And I tend to not lean on that as much because trout are very opportunistic. The bigger they get, the more moody and the spookier they can be. But it has been pretty bitey in almost all conditions, and in the fishy conditions, man, the last month has just been since mid-July and up until through now. It's been some of the best fishing I've seen. I think that has a lot to do with I continue to fish and guide more, but just getting out there and doing the high risk, high reward stuff and fishing in ways that I'm the only boat on a lot of the runs that I'm doing. And, that includes mousing, which, as you experienced, you get that high risk comes with the risk. The other side of, if you don't get rewarded, is a big fat zero. And so I've continued to go with that high risk, high reward. And, yeah, it doesn't pay off sometimes, but, a lot of times you miss a couple fish, and heck, if one's 20 and one's 22, that could be like all of a sudden these missed eats those could be the best, that could be quote unquote the best fishing day of someone's life. And you go home with a goose egg. So there's such a learning curve to all of this. And, it's clearly, if you can't tell from me rambling, it's been an exciting last month or so, both guiding and fishing on my own.
Yeah, it's funny. We were talking before we started recording, and you're so screwed up from your crazy fishing hours, daytime, nighttime, that you kind of, you might have some form of like fishing delirium, right?
Yeah, I think they made a movie about me called Memento. Some guy doesn't know where he is, and that's going to hit for like 1% of this audience, but it should hit pretty hard.
I see the movie poster right now, and got a question for you from a longtime listener, Fleas and Meat, and he's got a mousing question for you, and he wanted to get your thoughts on what you can do, kind of from a cadence of strip and presentation, when you're mousing in difficult conditions, like when it's cooler or the bite's not really on. What are some of your tricks?
Yeah, I mean, I find myself mousing, and specifically with clients, just because it's at night and you can't see trees, mousing in areas that have some of the froggiest water. And, when these tailwaters drop and you're fishing these flats with weed beds, it's almost still water. And it can be a little hard. Same with the stringer fishing. It can be a little harder to get the sales pitch all the way across the finish line. And I'm already stealing from Tommy Lynch and calling this a sales pitch, but I've moused with him a good deal, and it's a very different ball game on the Pierre Marquette. But I've learned a good deal from him, and I've employed and retweaked, and over the course of now 5 years have had a lot of success in a much more subtle presentation. So people talk about, milking the gerbil and almost two-handing, and sometimes not almost. quite literally two-handing a mouse fly with just these little tap, 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 tap. I like to give it a lift, or what would translate to a very long, slow, steady strip, and then a drop or stopping it. I like the lift because you get to, it's kind of a cheat code. You lift, and it's creating a big V. And then when you drop, that's the kill. Talk about the strip and kill on streamer fish, and you drop and you give them an opportunity to eat. And when you're doing that, you're taking some line in and getting ready to lift again. And a lot of it's, yeah, just off the top of my head, the three biggest fish, let's just say top three, have come on the lift and drop, and you don't hear them. You do not hear anything, which is spooky, and it adds a little extra creepiness to night fishing, that you're getting a 25-inch fish and not hearing anything, not feeling it until you go to lift again, and the glow tip or whatever is tension's pushing straight down or moving. And then I don't know if I've talked about the set or the no set, but just don't set on. It's not a dry fly, let them eat, then bang. It's more of a gradual, continue to apply pressure and drive that hook home, because they're holding on to a little critter. They already have it. And sometimes they'll spit it out, and sometimes they'll miss it. But most of the time they have that thing, and it's your job to keep it in their mouth. And then you have to angle. Like, this is, part of angling, part of fishing is casting your thing out there and getting a fish to eat it. The other part is bringing them into the boat. So the free lunches don't exist when you're fishing for big browns. It's just, there's nothing easy about it. And one of the most challenging parts is the holy shoot moment of a giant fish is on the line and is 6 feet away from the boat. Like, how do I get it in? I employ the strategy of the sooner you can do it, the better. So fishing minimum 15-pound fluoro. But back to that retrieve cadence, I would say another maybe 2 or 3 different variations would just be giving it a pop and then letting it die. And these kills are count to 3. I mean, they're painful. It feels like you're not even fishing. But the number of fish that have come on a mouse just drifting after just a little bit of a lift, they have so much better vision than we give them credit for. And yeah, they're eating a little bit from, the wake and the noise of it splatting and all that stuff, but they're tracking that thing, and they don't really want to go after something that's trying to get away like that. That defeats the purpose of what they're doing. They're going after an easy meal. So, I might misquote this guy, but I heard we heard some swamp monster right in front of the boat, and my angler jumped out. He was pulling his fly off the water, and he jumped back and remarked that it made him check for his wallet. And it was just such a close, loud swirl, and there was no pump fake. There's no, you got to give them an opportunity to eat. So really extend those kills. And as much as it might not feel like you're fishing, if you're creating a small wake on the surface, and then you're giving it a full stop, that's the only thing that they really want to see. And you can do that 1,000 different ways. And for any more tips, you might have to get on my boat.
Yeah, there you go. We'll get to that in just one second. But folks, we love questions on the articulate fly. You can email them to us or DM us on social media. whatever is easiest for you. And if we use your question, I will send you some articulate fly swag, and then we are drawing for some cool stuff from Ellis at the end of the season. And Ellis, before we talk about your calendar, we wanted to make sure we gave a shout out to the newest fly shop in Johnson City. You want to tell folks about that?
Yeah, Tailwater Fly Co. My boy John, who has been so supportive of me both as a friend and a client, which is pretty largely unnecessary, but he's actually the one who pushed me to find you, Marv.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, this was a couple years ago, and I put a video on Instagram like, hey, like, if folks have been following me, I'm not really a consumer of guides, and I'm wondering how to get my message out, and had some helpful replies, and John was one of them, saying, you should do some regional podcasts, and mentioned yours. So John has opened Tailwater Fly Co. Right next to the South Holston River, and actually stopped in there with clients a couple days ago when I forgot a net and went to grab his. And he might hate me for saying it, but he's close to opening up. He's burning the candle at both ends. So he's getting a lot of stuff together, and the amount of stuff that he had, it's a tires paradise. The guy is so fishy in all respects, but specifically with tying and which hooks, and recognizing that there are big differences between this hook and that hook. So he's got all of them: Arex, Partridge, Daiichi, everything from size 22s up to 6/0, and all different materials. He's going to have local tires doing some stuff. He's going to have some of my bucktail there. We don't have that here, and you can go and get $2,000 waders at a couple of different places, but you can't go and get, oh man, he's got this silver grade. He's got a bunch of silver grade whiting, rooster saddles, and nightmare musky fly stuff. Is just, he's taken so much knowledge, and I talk with him a lot, and he talks to my buddy Jack, and it really just cramming a lot of fishing experience and knowledge into a place for people to get materials both locally, and then John, I promise I'm not giving you a deadline, but I think over the winter getting the online stuff situated as well. But it's already an impressive collection of tying materials, and I know he's going to keep doing cool things there.
Very, very neat. And now to get to the booking stuff, right? So we're kind of moving into pumpkin spice latte land, which means, at some point we're going to kind of start going down the mousing roller coaster and start going up the musky roller coaster. So what have you got, and how should folks reach out?
I mean, if those are the two things that I'm doing, I can't believe I haven't been hospitalized yet, but I guess I'm on my way. So yeah, mousing, streamer fishing for browns, and sort of year round, but I really like to, around this time of year, next month or so, start getting more trips over towards the musky water. And you can get more information on that, or just ask me questions at elliswardflies.com, and request a trip, ask questions, whatever, at my cell phone at 513-543-0019. And Instagram is Ellis Ward Guides.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, folks, a couple things. Don't forget, we have a great community at the Articulate Fly. We hosted at Patreon. There are two great ways to support the show and to support Ellis. At one level, you get a discount on bucktails, and that's going to be very important here in about six to 8 weeks. And then the other is a tier where you actually get $100 per year guide credit with Ellis. So you should check those out. And then, of course, we're heading into a holiday weekend. I want everyone to have a happy and safe Labor Day weekend. And as I always say, you owe it to yourself to get out there and catch a few. Tight lines, everybody. Tight lines, Ellis.
Appreciate it, Mark.